Hello everyone, welcome to another Magic Brewhouse Games video. I am Marshall, and here with me we have Lou DeSimone and Jeremy Edwards.
Hey Marshall.
What's up?
Well, we got a special video here for you today. This is our Shadows over Innistrad Draft Archetype review. And without any further ado, let's just get right into it. So, first off, let's just do some quick housekeeping stuff. We're going to look at several different things. We're going to look at the color. What color combinations are in these different archetypes. For example, Azorius would be blue-white. And we're going to follow those guilds all the way through. The next thing we're going to look at is the style of deck, whether it's aggro, control, mid-range, ramp, or tempo. Those are just some examples. Sometimes you see different things, but those are typically the deck styles we see. Then we have themes. So if you remember back in the Battle for Zendikar draft, where there was a theme of Awaken, and that was, your blue-white, and a lot of cards had this mechanic of Awaken, so that would be an example of a theme. Here in Shadow over Innistrad, we might have something like Delirium.
Or Madness.
Or Madness. Or Werewolves.
Or Sparta.
Sorry. Well, not
Not
here.
so much, but
Not here. That was Theros. That was close. Not really. Sorry. Anyway, then we have our rating system. Now, this is an interesting system. Lou, do you want to tell us about this system?
sure. We took a look at three components of the archetype, and I thought that this was really important. We introduced this in our last archetype review, and we kind of took those three categories being synergy, right? How well do the cards play together? Do they produce some enhanced benefit by doing that? Exclusivity, right? This one was really important. How many other people are fighting for your particular archetype and the cards that belong to them? So a higher exclusivity rating shares fewer cards than the other archetypes. And removal, we took a look at the removal and the colors. How good are they, and how good are they together? So we also took a look, and you'll see that in the upcoming slides, our key cards, right, are premier commons and uncommons, things that play into the theme and the archetype. So
Great. All right, so now that you have an understanding of how we're going to be rating these different archetypes, let's get it kicked off. So, first archetype is blue-white. That's Azorius. And so, in this one, our style is kind of a tempo deck. We see that a common theme throughout is spirits, and we'll get into the rating here in a second. But here are some of our key cards here on the screen. Guys, what do you think?
I think it's, a traditional white, blue, evasive, tempo-y deck. It's true to the color. I found that in this particular set, we have a lot of truth to the color pie, right? It's very strong. I don't feel like there's a lot of deviance. So if you guys are familiar from other sets, and even the original Innistrad, where we saw a spirits theme in these colors, it's not going to be hugely new. But I like some of the new cards. I'm pretty excited, especially Spectral Shepherd as an example here. That bounces other spirits. That's a good synergy to that.
Yeah, and white does have a lot of good removal spells as well. Found some pretty strong ones here. We have the Puncturing Light up here on the screen. We have the Angelic card to let you sacrifice a permanent to exile 103 things. Like, there's a lot of good cards, and plus blue with the tempo, we got a lot of good bounce spells that can come at a timely manner. And we got some pretty good creatures like this Uninvited Guest, or excuse me, Geist. With Skulk. That mechanic, I'm still waiting to see how well that's going to show in a limited format, but it's still pretty good. And then when you transform it, it becomes unblockable, which
Right.
we'll see in a second.
Right, which brings us kind of to the next point. So we have flip cards in Shadows over Innistrad. So as we look through these archetypes, if we've picked out a card that's a flip card, we'll go ahead and show you the other side of that as well. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Let's take a look at the other side of Uninvited Guys. A 3/3 can't be blocked.
You know what they say, when something can't be blocked, it's pretty good.
I definitely would say that's
Can't argue that. That's perfect.
So
that's evasive.
I think you both made some really good points earlier. White, I do think, is one of the better colors for removal in this format, like Jeremy said. And Lou, you were on point when you said they were very strong in the color pie for this set. I think one thing you'll see is if you have a good understanding of the color pie, as you're playing this set, you'll go, those colors do those things like they've always done them, and maybe this kind of brings it back a little bit more. With BFZ, we saw a lot of colorless. We saw a lot of cards that were colored, but they weren't colored, and we're kind of all over the place. But here, Wizards is bringing it back in a little bit. So I just want to say you had great points. The rating here. So, synergy. We gave this deck, or this archetype here, a synergy of 4. Jeremy, why don't you talk about that real quick, just briefly?
Well, the cards might be good, but the cards don't specifically really work together. There's a few cards that say, oh, target spirit, like the Spectral Shepherd there. But there's not a whole lot to just say, oh yeah, spirits do this, spirit do that. And that killed the synergy level for us. I mean, the cards do play well, but not necessarily off of each other.
Mm-hmm. So the exclusivity, we've got a 5 here. That's just because we think that there's a lot of good white removal that you might not be able to get. Because a lot of other people want that removal. And to speak of that removal, we gave the removal of blue-white a 6. That is being held up as high as that is, even though it's not too high, by the white. The blue brings it down. In my opinion, I think that blue has the lowest on the scale of removal, whereas white is probably second, maybe third, close there with the red.
And black, right?
Black. They're all very close. But anybody have anything to say before we go to our next archetype?
No, and I think we spent a little bit longer on this one, but as we go through the rest of the archetypes, now that you guys are familiar with the ratings and all of how we have it set up, we should be able to get through them. So let's take a look at the next one.
All right. This one is black-white, or otherwise known as Orzhov. This one's style is a mid-range deck, meaning that you're not too aggressive, but you're not really controlling. You're kind of somewhere in the middle. And we discussed this when we were putting these archetypes together. The majority of limited decks are going to be somewhere in this mid-range. That's just how it works out. So our theme for this deck was delirium / madness. We decided this because there really isn't much of a synergy here, is there? And that's why we gave it a 3.
I think Orzhov as a color pair tends to be just good stuff, right? I mean, every time we do one of these, if all we say is, white, black, good stuff, it's by design kind of the way that it is. The cards are inherently strong individually. Together they're strong, but they do not have synergy with one another, typically. And it's the case here as well.
Yeah, and as far as, you'll see the low synergy rating, and we're not saying that this is bad. Even our rating system doesn't necessarily talk about whether the combo is a good or a bad combo. It just talks about how you're going to see it in draft. Right? So we just look at this black and white and we see there's a bunch of good cards that you can throw together to make a good limited deck. Right? But they don't really just play off each other. It's just throwing a good card after another onto the battlefield.
Right. So let's go ahead and flip to see the back sides of these 3 cards here. Okay, I just want to point out one thing. When we did our Oath of the Gatewatch archetype review, we had black-white. I believe the synergy was pretty high because of the allies. So I do want to just point out that, sometimes black-white does have good synergy. This, not the case.
Right.
So exclusivity. We think that because of the power level of a lot of the black and white, say, removal cards, you'll see that we gave removal an 8 there. The exclusivity is going to be a little lower. We've got it at a 4. So you might think, well, man, I want to get some of these sweet black and white cards. Well, everyone else is thinking the same thing.
As well they should.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No doubt.
All right. Next up is Boros, red-white. Now.
So, Marshall, if you don't mind, let me say that this is one of our highest rated archetypes. And I know that kind of burns you a little because you weren't a fan of that. But true to the rating, if we look and just jump right into it, synergy of 6, the cards tend to work much more strongly together. You take a look at the equipment, it's a suit-up Voltron aggro style deck. And exclusivity, you don't have people typically grabbing the equipment, grabbing the auras because of your particular point of you're going to have a single, you're weak to spot removal. But I felt in my limited experience so far that suiting up a guy and running him in is pretty strong. So it's not necessarily the strength of the archetype, again, our ratings, but it's a reflection of how people are going to fight you for those particular cards and how good they are, relative to the other components. So,
Sure, Lou. No, I agree with the fact that the synergy is above average here. The exclusivity is high because most of the cards aren't particularly exciting to grab early. And the removal in these colors is pretty good. I just love to hate this deck. I'm drinking the haterade here. I don't want to play a Voltron deck, but that's me. Some people love it, Lou, but it's not me. Do you love it, Jeremy?
It's just not my cup of tea. I mean, if the cards come to me while I'm drafting, I'm going to play this, but I just don't generally lean towards the red-white in general, so I'm a biased opinion. I'm not going to...
But I think true to what we're trying to say about the ratings and how we've rated them,
it's
two of the three of us are not really interested in going into this archetype, which just by its very nature tell us that the exclusivity rating is a good one. This is, for our viewership, something that we should experience or to get the point across here that's how we're rated and how we expect the decks to play out.
And it's really cool, especially if you are going to go into these archetypes, because of our negative emotions towards it. You can wheel these cards and pick out the better cards early on to make sure you're getting your removal spells and knowing that you're probably going to see these cards come back to you.
Yeah. So let us know in the comments afterwards about this Voltron archetype. Let us know, do you drink the haterade with me, or are you and Lou going to Voltron up? So with that...
And then I'm just neutral.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a look at the other side of the
the
Abyssinian missionaries.
Yeah, let's look at that. So the front side said if it was equipped
at the end step,
you transform it,
right?
And then this one says it basically, Oblivion Ring, right? You exile it, or
Banisher Priest.
Banisher Priest is right. It's a creature, so it's Banisher Priest, right? So it's exiled as long as this is in play, and when it leaves play, the creature comes back. So this is a very strong effect. So if you can get this synergy going, you're doing real things.
Yep. All right. Let's take a look at the next one.
All right. Selesnya, green-white. This is another one of our mid-range decks where the theme is kind of lacking here, just like our Orzhov deck. So this is green-white. We kind of said there's some human synergies. There's some delirium going on here. But overall, we're not sure what you want to do if you're green-white. Maybe you just play the best cards you can get. And in green-white, there's some good ones. You'll see the synergy we have is low here. Let's go ahead and flip those cards, though. So if you can get these guys to flip, especially this lone wolf here, if you can get this guy to flip, that's a very strong effect to draw 2 cards every time your opponent casts a spell in your turn.
Yeah, those people playing red and black.
Blue. Yeah. So people playing Madness, discarding things, casting things at instant speed that normally can't be cast at instant speed. That's real for you. You're doing some real stuff. You're getting some serious value. And here we have Angelic Purge. Is this the first time? No, we saw this last slide, didn't we?
To be brutally honest, I don't remember, but
wish we had great memories.
It was on a previous slide.
Oh yeah, we did see it previously, and you mentioned it, Jeremy.
Yes,
this is a great removal spell, and I know that Lou isn't a huge fan. Maybe in this archetype you're not a big fan of this one.
I think it's okay. I prefer it definitely if you're going into the delirium angle, because you get to sacrifice a permanent.
Sure.
So, and put a sorcery in the yard, right? It's definitely a two card, boost to get.
I know you wanted to say 2 for 1. You could have said it. I would have let you.
Even a 3 if we hit like an artifact creature or something like that, like something that we haven't talked about. Delirium will activate twice off of the artifact and the creature, so that's 2 cards for 1. So you can possibly get a 3 for as far as delirium is concerned.
Yeah, and we'll definitely take a look at that when we get to the Golgari archetype.
So to go over the ratings real quick, Synergy is a 3 here. The exclusivity, we kind of gave it a middle of the road. We gave it a 5 because probably if you're playing a good deck, like just a green-white good stuff, you're going to be fighting other people for those cards. And the removal, we gave a 6, which is above average, pretty good rating. So on to the next one. Next we have blue-black Dimir. Again, a mid-range deck. Now, we see a very, very, like, obvious theme here in zombies, right? This is kind of a, like, you go, okay, there's a zombie. That card cares about zombies. You just go down the line here. But what's this madness?
Well, we could have called it Zombies Matter, right? But as you can take a look at both Murderous Compulsion and Giza's Bidding, we do have just enough zombie or removal-based madness that feels like it plays well into the Dimir zombie strategy.
Okay. So, just from my experience, guys, I'm just going to be honest, with playing during the pre-release, playing with and against blue-black zombies, sometimes these zombie decks just get out of control. And they make tons of tokens, and they just go and they just run you over. But sometimes it felt like they just didn't have enough punch.
Well, so I think there's a couple other archetypes that we'll end up talking about this, particular aspect. If you get, and that's the hardest part. We didn't feature any rares or mythics in our card pool here because that's not really the meat and potatoes, right? If you're lucky enough to get them, you're going to get them. But in the zombie strategy, the rare and mythic zombies, they're really, really, orders of magnitude bring up the deck. By itself, it's okay. I mean, clearly the rating is high. It means that not as many people are going to be totally
absolutely
pulling into this lane. But definitely there's a lot of synergy going on here.
Jeremy, any thoughts here?
No, some did it pretty good, actually.
Okay. So just to cover the rating real fast, synergy of 7 with all the Zombies Matter cards. Exclusivity of 6. There's a lot of zombie cards that, honestly, people just don't want. Unless you're in the deck. And then, because of the black removal, we gave this removal here a 6. Alright. Next is Izzet, as blue-red. And we gave the theme of this deck, Instants and Sorceries Matter. So if the last one was Zombies Matter, this is Instants and Sorceries Matter.
And I guess we could have said Madness here, too, because there's a little bit of that. But I think it's less of the focus here.
Right. That's kind of an extra, oh, cool, I can get a madness trigger every now and then. But, for instance, Fiery Temper, it's on an instant, right? And so, you're already playing that card. If you could play it for 1, if you could Lightning Bolt, why wouldn't you, But let's see. So, a couple of the key cards here is the Pyrie Hound and the new Delver of Secrets. Here, the Aberrant Researcher.
A card I really want to point out is Pour Over the Pages. That is such a cool card that for 5, you're going to draw 3 cards, untap 2 lands, and then discard a card. I don't know how much more...
That's about Value Town as you can get.
Right. That's a how many for 1, Marshall? It's a whole lot.
I think it's probably right at 5 for 1. I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, plus you get to add Madness if you have it. I mean, it literally is a wonderful card, and I think that people should kind of hone into that if they're not already there. Yeah. So, take a look at the backside of
let's go ahead and flip that over. So you start off with a 3/2 flying, and at your upkeep, if you reveal an instant or sorcery, you get a 5/4 flying.
I think you mill the top card of your library, and if it happens to be an instant or sorcery...
sorry, my bad. I'm living in the Delver of Secrets days.
Well, I can't blame you. Delver's pretty good.
Well, it just seems like sometimes when they get a card like that, a common or uncommon, that's so powerful, but I don't necessarily think that they see this going to be that powerful. They always seem to, in the next set, when they go back to that plane, always have the fixed card.
Yeah,
exactly. So this is the
and this is interesting because it might be something you forget, but just that little incremental, you could also be fueling your delirium by putting the card from the top of your library into your graveyard. Not that you have any delirium in these 2 colors, but they're it's something to think about if you're going to play other
Well, I
colors.
mean, if everybody wants to be like Marshall and play 3 colors,
Well, not everyone wants to be like me, and I can't blame them.
Well, you know what? If I won as much as you, Marshall, I'd want to be more like you too. It's Anyway.
Way to butter me up over here. No.
Did we already review?
We need to talk. Yeah, we need to talk about the ratings. So, Synergy, we gave it a 5. Any thoughts on why we gave it a 5 for the Synergy, guys?
I think the cards work well together, but I mean, they're all good cards. But how does it actually? Where do they matter? Right?
So here's what you do: you first pick Thing in the Ice, and then
we just call the Synergy as a 10. Every instant in sorcery is all about that.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, 5 probably sounds about right. Exclusivity of a 6. Thoughts, Jeremy?
So as far as the exclusivity goes, it got a 6 because, yes, people are going to be fighting for some of the cards that you get here. Like Fire Temper is probably going to get picked pretty early. But, Pour Over the Pages is not going to go early. Geist Blast, the Ghostbusters card over here, right? That's not going to get picked by anybody that's not playing this color specifically. So there's a couple of cards that only work well with just the idea of playing a lot of spells. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why it got as high of an exclusivity rating. But like I said, because of some of the better cards that are going to get picked by other archetypes, we're going to lose some.
Sure. And a removal for Izzet was 6.
All right, so here is the Scooby-Doo Get a Clue Simic archetype. I think this one, it's interesting, right? The rating is pretty high, and just like we had mentioned before, when you look at those cards, some of them, they're reasonably good. The Graph Mole is a good, 2/4 for 3 mana with a incidental benefit's good. There's a lot of these things about the clues, but you really don't start cooking with gas and get moving until you get into the best cards here in this archetype are in rare. Tamiyo's Journal, Tireless Tracker, that sort of thing. And when you can get one or more of them, then all of a sudden this clue archetype, you plugged in, you're lit up, and you're ready to go. It's something. But to me, having played clues also, it felt a little anemic, right? You might draw a card here and there, but I don't feel like it's the killer archetype like some of the other ones.
No, not at all. It's really hit or miss with clues anyways. I mean, drawing cards is always good, but you don't always necessarily mean you're going to draw into something that's going to help you out in the game. So, love it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're the one with the haterade.
You said it all. Like, if you get the rares, you love the deck. If you don't, you sit there and you twiddle your thumbs. I mean, yes, there's a lot of good creatures in this set, and I think if I play this deck, I'm just going to end up being like a green-blue, like, good stuff deck. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to have an Investigate Synergy. It might be there, it might not. I don't know. But, who knows, man? Last time, and I think in our video, we were kind of down on blue-green, and we were down on green for Oath of the Gatewatch, and then green ended up being really good in Oath of the Gatewatch, from my experience, and I drafted green-blue the first night we could, and I don't mean to toot my own horn over here, but I did go 3-0.
My only other question, Marshall, is how many other colors were you playing?
I believe I was playing 5-color Prism Array that night, and
what are you going to do? Anyway, so for this blue-green Simic archetype, we had a synergy of 7. The cards do play very well together with this Investigate Clue synergy that's there. Exclusivity is high, also a 7. Cards are not likely to be picked by other people. They're kind of specific to the archetype. And the removal, you're going to have some bounce spells, and with the exception of maybe 1, possibly 2 green cards, you don't really have a lot of removal. So I had a removal of a 4.
All right. So here, this is it.
You've arrived.
Lou is salivating right now. You can't see him because we're only doing audio. But this is our red-black, our Rakdos. Vampire Madness. So we gave this as an aggro deck, and it's kind of not your typical aggro deck in the sense that maybe you're not playing super cheap, aggressive creatures on the face, but if you get Madness going, you get that value, don't you? Today.
Well, the thing about this one is, like, I got to play with some of these cards and I got to mess around with some of this stuff, and when it's cooking, it's really cooking. But when you get stuck drawing your cards that aren't letting you discard, like, you're sitting with a handful of cards that are overpriced, and you're just like, man, I have to start casting these or I'm going to die.
I don't know. I almost feel like I disagree with where you're at. I know that you can get stuck in any archetype regardless of how good or bad we say it is, or it might end up better for you. But when you have Madness, like, call the Bloodline. Gee whiz. 1 mana to discard, residually. Not only did you beat my face with it, but what I'm saying is, you once you have Madness online, your advantage and the incremental benefit you gain by casting spells on the cheap is arguably unbeatable.
I'm not arguing that part. Like, Call of the Bloodline was a great card, and yes, I did beat Lou's face with it. However, the point that I'm trying to get at is, like, when we went to the pre-release, I didn't get that card. And I had some discard cards, but I got stuck in many games on like 3 or 4 mana with a bunch of Madness cards that cost more than that. And I was stuck in those games just because I couldn't draw a 5th land or whatever the situation was. It's just one of those things, like, when it's cooking, it's really cooking and it's really, really good. I'm not disagreeing with you, but it can get easy. I think it's easier to get stuck in this archetype than it is the other archetypes, because you are trying to rely on the Madness cost more than the actual cost.
But maybe this is another good thing where we should query the viewers here.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys find that the Madness archetype was, incredible, or did you get stuck like Jeremy? I think we would really like to hear about that, and it was just the 3 of us, and
Unfortunately, I never got the opportunity to play this archetype. I played against it, Lou, and it was pretty powerful at moments. It was really great, especially Lightning Axe. I think my jaw hit the table when he goes Lightning Axe, discard Madness spell, play it, and I'm just like, what
just happened?
Like, is that real?
Play Lightning Axe, kill your 5 toughness creature, discard Fiery Temper, kill your 3 toughness creature.
Yeah. And
I did that for 2 red on the instant?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good.
If by pretty good you mean broke, then yeah.
So the synergy here is high, because the deck really wants to be discarding things and activating Madness, and that is it. It is so obvious that's what it wants to do. And if you're not being synergistic, you're not playing the deck right. Exclusivity is a 3. All of these cards are just good anyway. And so even if you have to pay 3 mana for Fiery Temper, you're still like, yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Even getting rid of a land that you might postpone a couple turns to do 5 damage to a creature that would otherwise be lethal at instant speed.
Or late in the game, you just pay 6. These are all real things.
I agree with you. Everybody wants the cards that's here, but formed together in the archetype are incredible.
And last thing, removal is an 8. Let's go ahead and flip our card there. So we see that you discard a card, and she turns into a 3/2 flyer.
That doesn't suck.
That's pretty good. Okay, next we have green-black Golgari. This is our delirium archetype. This is probably one of the ones that I'm most interested in giving a try throughout the format, just to see, because I really enjoy this idea of putting things into my graveyard and returning them and getting things. I mean, it's kind of like Madness, but it's probably not as good. I don't know.
I feel like this is probably the 2nd or 3rd strongest archetype.
Mm-hmm.
I like all the cards. They do very strong things. And to get delirium, especially Jeremy had brought it up earlier, when you have things like this wild field scarecrow, if he's in your graveyard that you can sacrifice him there, you already have fetched up lands, you've added an artifact creature to your graveyard, you're already well on your way to delirium, and it blocks for, early days.
This was one of the archetypes that during sealed seemed kind of tough to get, but I feel like in draft is going to be significantly easier. Not like automatic easier, but just significantly enough where you can go, oh, I can do that if I'm in that archetype. So synergy, again, synergy's high here. This is clearly one of the defined formats, defined archetypes of the format. We gave it an 8. Exclusivity, you're in green and black. There's some really good cards. We gave it a 4. It's low. Removal, we gave it a 6. Obviously, there's some pretty good removal in black. So we're going to flip, and there you can see the other sides. Delirium to destroy a creature, and then if you get delirium, trample, it turns into a trample hexproof 4/4 creature. Which
also doesn't suck.
Also does not suck. All right, next. Is this our last one?
Yes, this is our last archetype.
This is our last archetype. This is the red-green mid-range werewolves.
That's all right.
That was pretty
style.
Come on now. Come on now.
Okay, I love this. I like werewolves. I like green-red. I don't know. Lou might not feel the same way. Jeremy, do you feel the same way?
I love the way they go together. I love the lore behind werewolves just to begin with. But we're looking at some pretty good cards here, right? And I'm not against playing these colors. They've got some good cards. You even got some, we're going to talk about a little bit more, like some exclusive removal cards for this specific archetype that make green just that much better when you're playing with werewolves.
The Moonlight Hunt, I think.
Exactly. Yes, very much so.
But to your point, I think Gruul is just generally a fun thing to play. I mean, you might be a hardcore control player, but when you play these things, you can bash face, you can flip werewolves that do really exciting things. It's hard to argue with this particular archetype. So while we're reviewing the rest of the rating, let's take a look at the backside of these cards because it's pretty exciting.
Let's do it. All right, our first one here, the Neckbreaker. So the Neckbreaker. Attacking creatures you control get +1/+0 and have trample.
Why not?
What?
Well, you just read it. I'm pretty sure you got that part.
Thanks, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
That card is so good, especially if you just have 4 or 5 guys in the battlefield, maybe a stalled board state. That can just win you the game sometimes.
And it's when you think about the removal in green that Jeremy was referring to, Moonlight Hunt, where all of your werewolves do damage. We don't have the fight mechanic in Shadows over Innistrad. It's a one-way damage, to the creatures. I think that it's the green removal when you have the right power doing damage across. Way, it's good.
Yeah, we were discussing this when we were talking about the show. We talked about how
Rabid
Bite is like Fall of the Hammer from Born of the Gods, and that card was just insane, and it's in green now. And so like you said, that card is fantastic. I want to talk about Pack Guardian for a second. This card is so good. A 4/3 for 4 is already I'll play that card. But then you put Flash on it, and now we're cooking. But wait, there's more.
There's more.
When Pack Guardian enters the battlefield, you may discard a land card. If you do, put a 2/2 green wolf creature token onto the battlefield. So let's say I'm kind of flooding out in my hand. I've got an extra land. I've now turned this 4-mana spell at instant speed into 2 creatures with 6 power across 2 bodies. What?
That is insanely good, is what we call that.
Yeah, the only reason that this card is not on every single green slide that we had is because we just didn't want to put it there.
Now, it would get a little bit boring after a while.
It would
But
get
pretty
really
much,
repetitive.
if you're playing green, you see this guy, you should pick him over just about any card that you're going to see.
Okay, so let's talk about the rating. We gave it a 6.3, one of our better ratings. A synergy of 8 because of all the werewolves, things like that. Exclusivity of 4 with, for instance, Pack Guardian. Like we said, any green deck wants that, and I feel the same way about a lot of these green werewolves that say uncommon mostly. Are just anyone was going to play them. Even if they're not in a werewolf deck, they're just good cards. In the removal between... Now, the removal's probably a little higher than if it were just some red-green deck in the format that didn't have werewolves. But if you have werewolves, this gets kicked up because of cards like Moonlight Hunt or Rabid Bite. Where you could play Rabid Bite in any deck that has green, it's better in this because your creatures are typically bigger. And so you can take care of more things. Where if you played that in, I don't know, like a green-blue deck, it's not as good because your blue creatures aren't as big, typically, as your green creatures.
Sure.
Well, I think that's it. Any other thoughts, guys, before we close it off?
No, I think we're in for some good stuff. Shadows over Innistrad. Looks like it's shaping up to be a fun one.
Seems like it's going to be fun. Let us know in the comments below if you agree or disagree with anything we just said.
Yes, please. And if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we would really appreciate it if you subscribed, liked our videos, and genuinely just enjoy some more of them. But until next time,
We'll be stirring up some magic.
see you guys.
Bye, everybody.